Self-assessment. I've debated whether or not to do this. Why do you want to log into YouTube, switch on, click on to see a video about self-assessment? But it's really important, and this is going to give you the basics to enable you to decide what you need to do and whether you need to register. Okay, so self-assessment. What is self-assessment? Well, self-assessment in its simplest form is about completing a tax return. And then you go, well, I don't want to do a tax return. And what's a tax return? And is that important? If you're an employee, definitely not. Maybe. What do you mean maybe, Mark? You keep throwing these things and you make it really unclear. Well, if you're an employee and all you receive is PAYE income, employment income, you don't have to complete a tax return and you don't have to worry about self-assessment. Self-assessment is about capturing, taxing that income that is outside of employment. So by that, I'm talking about dividends. I'm talking about pensions. Yeah, those things that you have to pay into and you get some money back in the future. Yeah, that stuff. Renting a property, bank interest potentially. It's those things that self-assessment is all about taxing. So how does it tax those things, and why is it that we need to do a tax return? In fairness to His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, they don't know if you are receiving a dividend from a company. They don't know if you're renting a property. They might find out because they have devious ways. They don't know if you are receiving interest on a bank account. And again, they do get that information from other sources. So there are things that they will go, well, we didn't know about that, and you have to tell us. And a self-assessment tax return is designed to capture that information. You have to complete a self-assessment tax return if you receive one of those forms of income. So if you receive a dividend from stocks and shares, be that you might receive a dividend from your own company that you've just started running because you've been made unemployed and you've got a great opportunity and it's really working for you. If you rent out a second home, or even if you rent out a room in your own home, depending on the amount. If you receive interest on a bank account, and again, there are allowances around that, and the final bit being pension income. But if it doesn't fall into that pot, it might be that it falls into other income. So if you've got the occasional, what should we talk about, consultancy with something, or that you're getting paid to pull a website together for somebody, well, that might not be self-employment income, but that might be other income. By far the biggest area for self-assessment is if you are self-employed. Now, I've got to be very clear about this because there is a bit of confusion between self-employment for tax purposes and self-employment for financial purposes. So for tax purposes, if you are self-employed, you are running your own business as a sole trader, or you are in partnership with somebody running it as an unincorporated entity. That is massively different to going to a mortgage company when you are the director of your own company and the mortgage company says you are self-employed. Legally, you are not self-employed. It's just that your characteristics for borrowing money are more akin to self-employed people. It's not legally you have to do it. We know you've decided you've got to do this self-assessment tax return. Okay, so how do you tell the revenue that you need to do it? Well, you have to have registered by the 31st of October following the end of the tax year. That's the long stop date in the UK, so you have to have done it by the 31st of October. Strictly speaking, if you're in self-employment, or if you start renting out a property, you have to do that within 3 months of starting one of those activities. And the reason for doing that is it's about national insurance. And potentially you may have to pay Class 2 national insurance or Class 4 on profits. If you don't register for self-assessment because you either don't know you need to or you decide that maybe you don't want to, and obviously deciding you don't want to would potentially be classed as tax evasion, that's bad. Don't do that. That could get you into all sorts of trouble. So you have to register for self-assessment, and you can do that online. That's the way that they want you to do it. They would prefer you now to do that using a government gateway. You set all that up. And what that registration does is ultimately give you a 10-digit number. That 10-digit number is called a unique tax reference number, or UTR. for short. That UTR is your gateway to the system. It's your key to unlock absolutely everything in relation to self-assessment. If you don't have that key, well, to a certain extent, you're not going to get very far because it won't let you do anything. And what you need to remember is once you are allocated that unique tax reference number, if you stop being self-employed or you stop receiving dividend income and don't need to complete a tax return for a few years, and then you go back to needing to complete a tax return, that unique tax reference number is unique to you and is for your life. It doesn't change unless His Majesty Revenue and Customs decide to change it, and they do that very rarely. But importantly, that's what it needs to try and manage. It's about unique to you. It is your key. If you lose it, you've got to ask HMRC to send it to you, and that can be problematic. So self-assessment is about managing the income and taxing the income that falls outside of employment. That is what it's all about. It's about nothing more than that. It's about nothing less than that. And that's why, as a business owner, as somebody thinking of starting a business, somebody interested in finance, you need to understand that is all it is. It is nothing more complicated than that, other than lots of pieces of paper that you then have to fill in. So if self-assessment is about tax not having to be taxing, why not check out our video about the budget and those changes?